Tell Sydney it's all because of her. Tell Sydney heads are gonna roll tonight.
Hello everyone, my name is Frederick Lopez, you're in the final cut, and today I'm going to be going over my review and thoughts of Scream 4. Here we go. Scream 4 stars Neve Campbell as Sidney Prescott, Courtney Cox as Gail Ruthers Riley, David Arquette as Dewey Riley, Emma Roberts plays Jill Roberts, Hayden Panettiere plays Kirby Reed, Rory Culkin plays Charlie Walker, Eric Knudston plays Robert Mercer. It includes cameos from Lucy Hale, Hannah Paquin, Christian Bell, Shanae Grimes Beach. It's been many years since Scream 3. Sidney Prescott is now an author of a self-help book and returns home to Woodsboro on the last stop of her book tour. There she reconnects with Sheriff Dewey and Gail, who are now married, as well as her cousin Jill and her aunt Kate. Unfortunately, Sidney's appearance also brings about the return of Ghostface, putting Sidney, Gail, and Dewey, along with Jill, her friends, and the whole town of Woodsboro, in danger. So yeah, Scream 4 is Wes Craven's final film, and he's a maestro of horror, and I have to admit, this is a pretty good way to go out with his last film. Scream 4 is a return to form for this series, and a fitting end. Even though everything ended with a trilogy in Scream 3, this is a worthy conclusion to the franchise. It's one of the few sequels that adds upon the predecessors but doesn't ruin everything that came before. And just like the sequels made commentaries on horror movie sequels of second and third films, this one makes commentary on horror film remakes, which is something very new. And then you have Kevin Williamson returning in the writer's chair, so everything feels like it's very intense and is on the edge of your seat still, like the first two installments. And it has something that Scream 3 was missing. Ultimately, it's a return to form. And Wes Craven supposedly said many years he would not direct a Scream 4 unless the script was as good as the first film. And I have to say, the script and the film itself is probably the best Scream film since the original. In a way, it's almost like a remake of the original in a sense, but it's a third sequel to the series. But it's really, really well directed. It's nice seeing it used with like digital technology. Nice seeing the characters we all know and love change after so many years, especially so many years without incidents. So like, we get to see the repercussions of the previous installments on Gail, Dewey, and Sidney Prescott. Dewey finally got over his limp, so he's kind of more normal like he was in the first film. Him and Gail are now married. He's sheriff now. And Sidney writes a self-help book, like I said in the synopsis, and it's really about overcoming trauma and overcoming events that make people victims. It's about basically helping yourself and not being a victim for anybody, for being stronger. And they also add Sidney's family in this. Emma Roberts plays Jill Roberts, her cousin. And Hayden Panettiere and all the young actresses do a great job. In a way, Rory Culkin and them, they're almost like the Screamcast 2.0. It's almost like the exact carbon copies of what came before, but now in a digital age. It's almost like a modernized remake. And again, this is a very postmodern and I have to say meta film. And Kevin Williamson's brilliant in that. He was brilliant in that in the first Scream, and this takes it a step further with remakes. And especially with the culture now. I mean, when this was made, it was like in 2010 or, excuse me, when this was made in 2011, there was already a lot of horror remakes. You have Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, but now it's gone beyond the horror genre. We just have remakes in general. And this really makes a commentary on that. And a lot of great lines I get to later. But It's very well directed, and it's thrilling. It's intense again. Nothing is, I mean, there's some comedy, but it's not like in a jokey, self-parody sense like Scream 3. And it's much more intense than Scream 2. It feels like a close spiritual sequel to the first film. I know people have their opinions on Scream 4, but to me, it is my second favorite, maybe my favorite of the Scream series. It is very intense. And Wes Craven is a master of suspense, thrills, and the gore. Oh my god, it's just so much more realistic and grounded. And for a Ghostface knife, they used to have rubber ones and plastic. And this one, they have a CGI knife, so it was just a knife handle. Instead, they added a CGI knife, so everything just seems much more intense and just visceral and just gory. I mean, it's all around, the stakes are high. The stakes are high all around. Of course, there's a lot of comedy with the horror movie rules. Rory Culkin and them talking about, like, you pretty much have to be a gay person to survive a horror film now. It's no longer like you can't have sex, you can't drink, you can't do drugs. Like, pretty much the rules have changed. Talking about the false ending. How usually there's like a third act, and now that's like a false ending. And then Anthony Anderson as a deputy has a lot of funny humor. He's pretty much saying, like, unless you're Bruce Willis, if you're a cop, you're gonna die in one of these movies. And there's just like a lot of funny humor with that, and some intense moments again with gore. It's only filming the Scream series without the red, white hand. And then, yes, Wes Craven, to allow more intensity with the actors, he'd never have them meet Ghostface. And it was always a surprise, so you could really tell the performances that they were genuinely scared. Plus, he had pranks about Ghostface appearing out of nowhere during the gag reel, so that was nice. And again, like Billy Loomis and the whole Psycho stuff, there is another reference to Psycho. Anthony Anderson plays Deputy Perkins. His name is Anthony Perkins, like the actor who played Norman Bates in the original Psycho by Alfred Hitchcock, so I thought that was neat. But without getting too much into spoilers, I like the chemistry between the young kids and then with Sidney Prescott, seeing the old and new generation and how it ties in, and ultimately the story. It didn't feel too far-fetched. I was wondering how they're going to handle the return of Ghostface, and they do it in a pretty interesting way, pretty realistic. And this movie has some twists and turns in it. And without getting into too many spoilers, I'm going to give my score ahead of time. I give it a 9.5 out of 10, a 4.5 out of 5, and an A. Scream 4 is highly recommended, and it makes the final cut. Yes, it makes a final cut. Scream 4 makes the final cut, and it's a worthy film in Wes Craven's like wonderful movie library. Wes Craven, I wish he could have done another film, but you know what? Scream 4 is not bad, and Wes Craven redefined the horror genre in both the 80s with A Nightmare on Elm Street and the 90s with Scream, and it's only fitting that he goes all out on this one. This is a worthy conclusion to not only the Scream series, but Wes Craven's filmography, and it's a fantastic one at that. But getting to spoiler territories, I like the Stabathon stuff at the party, them having Robert Rodriguez's credit because he directed that scene. Just all around some great stuff, but ultimately, the person who really steals the show is Emma Roberts as Jill. And now, okay, before I go on to this, back when I rented this, I knew that she was going to be a villain, and maybe Rory Culkin. Two reasons. Rory Culkin had to be one of the movie people in the movie club to be one of the killers. One of the movie club people had to be the killers because Randy died in the other ones, and it has to be somebody that's very knowledgeable with horror movie trivia. So I figured it'd be him. But the reason why I said Jill is because she's related to Sidney Prescott. Scream 3 ended everything in that Scream trilogy. It was a trilogy. It was done. There's nowhere to go after that. So I was like, where can you go from there? And Halloween did it with Laurie Strode's daughter, with Michael Myers' niece. You have to have some family member tie into the sequel. For a reason for a monster or certain events to come back, for a story to continue, it has to tie back to the family. And that's when I knew Emma Roberts was going to be a villain in this. And I guessed them two right off the bat, but it was still surprising. The revelation of that was just so intense, and Emma Roberts just like totally changed. She was like the girl next door, really sweet, and then she was just like psychotic killer, I want to be a reality star, I want to be famous type of person. And when she stabbed Sidney, and then that false ending, you thought it was going to end there, and then that hospital, such an intense moment. And I love that part of the defibrillator where Emma Roberts has him hostage, Sidney's out of it, she uses a defibrillator, and then Sidney Prescott, Neve Campbell delivers the best line out of like any movie. And #1 rule for remakes, You forgot the number one rule of remakes, Jill. Don't fuck with the original. And I was just like, that was awesome. Crowd pleasing moments, and then the news is out there, you just see Jill's face, and that's where it ends. And I was just like, wow. It really had a lot to say about remakes and reality shows and the way people want to be famous now, the perception of fame. There's just a lot of deep stuff in this film, both in the open and in subtext. It's a very smart and savvy script, I must say. And Wes Craven, again, brings Kevin Williamson's script out. And that was great. Hitting Petinaire, where she's in the trivia, the part that mirrors the beginning of the first with the Rory Culkin, and then her naming all the remakes, that was really crazy sequence. The parking garage with Rebecca, and like Ghostface stabbing her is like, everything's under control. Dewey saying that, and then the beginning, the cameos at the beginning were brilliant. I was worried at first because I was like, some of it sounds a little cringeworthy. I'm like, I hope this isn't the movie. And it's like stab 5. Oh, no, excuse me, stab 6. And then you have Anna Paquin and Christian Bale, stab 7. And then you have like the real people. And that was very intense with the actresses there. And then her getting crushed with the garage. And then just like stab, and you see Scream 4. I like the humor between Gail and Dewey. And then Deputy Hicks. That was funny. Where she's just like, I basically wrote the book on this. And then it's like, by the way, your cookies taste like ass. And then he had a bigger part, and then when she got stabbed and the whole matching wound things, just brilliant stuff. And it's expected for the main characters to survive, and I know that gets a little old, but still, I felt like everybody was expendable still. And you can say that, yeah, they're not going to die, you can expect that, but still to have that feeling of like, maybe they're not going to make it through the end is a compliment to Wes Craven and Kevin Williamson's work on this film. It is all around one of the best horror sequels, and not many horror movies get to have the majority of the original cast, at least the main character, survive in all the sequels and be featured in the sequels. And Scream's that rarity. And yeah, Scream is just one of the best horror movie series. It's not the most scariest, it's not the most goriest, but I feel like if you've watched horror films and you're a fan of horror films and just films in general, you're going to have a deep appreciation for the Scream series and what it set out to do. The acting, the directing, the writing, everything is fantastic. The gore, I love some of the kills there. And then the voice, I just love that voice. Roger Jackson's just so menacing. And then when Emma Roberts does it, he's like, tell Sydney it's all because of her. Tell Sydney heads are going to roll tonight. I just love that moment. And it's nice seeing Sidney Prescott be proactive in this. She's a fighter. She's been through this enough. And she's like, I had enough of these people's shit already. So she's no victim for anybody. And it's nice seeing a stronger Sidney in this. Even though Jill's behind it all, it's nice seeing the parallels to Jill in Scream 4 to Sidney in Scream 1. So very interesting stuff. Again, follows a remake stuff. And it's very postmodern meta. And the video stuff is great. Just all around, it's a very savvy and smart film. And I highly, highly recommend this. I know this is a quick review and I want to go into it more. But originally, they kind of reworked from Scream 3 because Matthew Lillard, Stu from the first one, was supposed to survive and use high school students to be the killers in Scream 3. Columbine happened, so they changed that. So they didn't use Stu in this, but they kind of reworked it with the high school kids. And yeah, all around, I miss Wes Craven. He's the maestro of horror, but he really delivers in this film. And the Scream series not only had 3 sequels, with this one being the conclusion, but it spawned Scream the TV series on MTV, which is going on to its 3rd season now for a limited run. But yeah, quite a legacy Kevin Williamson and him started with Scream. And yeah, new decade, new rules. That's the best way to describe this. Some 4th installments I get mad of after trilogies are done for being made, but this one doesn't ruin anything previously, and it's even a better, if not more worthy conclusion than Scream 3, I feel. This is among my favorite 4th installments, along with Live Free or Die Hard and Mad Max Fury Road. All around, it's a very intense, great film that brings this franchise and this story back to form to what it originally was in the first film back in 1996. So yeah, just great stuff. Actors and everything, and the kids, and Wes Craven always had actors that play around their own age. Emma Robertson and Rory Culkin, they're around the age you're supposed to be. Maybe they're a little bit older. Some of them are their age, but Hayden Panettiere, they're all young. He always got fresh faces that were around that age, and it really helps. It's the reason why like stuff like Stranger Things is so good, is you get kids to play their own age. You don't have people who are like 35 years old in high school. Like this worked, especially more so for this film. And yeah, all around, it's one of my favorite films for Halloween. And if you haven't checked out the Scream films, go check them out right now. Go check out the Nightmare on Elm Street. It's all of Wes Craven, John Carpenter films. And check Scream 4 out if you haven't seen it. It's a great film, very intense. It's really good for Halloween. And yeah, that does it for the final cut today. 9.5 out of 10. A 9.5 out of 10, a 4.5 out of 5, and an A. Scream 4 makes the final cut, and yeah, another fantastic, well-crafted, and perhaps classic from Wes Craven. He is the maestro of horror, and I miss him. But that's it for the final cut. I hope everyone out there who has watched these reviews on my channel has a terrific Halloween. Have the best Halloween this year of Halloween 2016. That does it for the final cut reviews for Halloween season. Yeah, so that does it for this episode of the final cut. I might not do these for a little bit. I'm going to do some of the other stuff I haven't done this month, but tune in for next month on November on the Frederick Lopez channel. I'm going to have more blogs, PCDC with Supergirl, Legends of Tomorrow, Arrow, and then Action Reaction. I'm going to review The Crow, Terminator 2 Judgment Day, The Matrix, whole bunch of stuff. And then, yeah, I should get to Gaming Hour. I'm going to have Son-in-Law for rom-com around Thanksgiving. And yeah, expect to see more stuff on the channel. And yeah, tune in for more of my extra stuff. And then if you want to see more Final Cut, I'll probably be going over the Insidious trilogy next. But expect that later. But before that, tune in next month for my review of Underworld Evolution. I'm going to be reviewing each Underworld entry until the new film in January. Anyway, that's Frederick Lopez. Y'all enjoy. And out there, tell me, what did you think of Scream 4? What's your favorite Scream? Just tell me your thoughts. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and then tell me what's your favorite scary movie.